Do you think these are scenes from a new fantasy blockbuster or shots from a rover? No, not at all. All of this is right here on Earth. But don't rush to buy tickets. This unearthly beauty hides deadly traps, acidic lakes, poisonous air, and places where you'd be cooked alive in a couple of seconds. Today I'll show you 13 places where nature has gone wild. We'll start with harmless oddities, but be sure to watch until the end. The last 3 places on this list are a true branch of hell, where even scientists fear to tread. Let's go. Fly Geyser, USA. Guys, look closely at the screen right now. What you see looks like cheap computer graphics from an 80s sci-fi movie, or as if someone overdid it with the acid filters on Instagram. 3 strange cones spewing water colored in wild neon hues, bright green, blood red, and yellow. It seems like a landscape from a planet where the atmosphere consists of LSD. But the funniest thing here is that this is an absolutely real place. It's located in Nevada, in the dry Black Rock Desert. And you know what's craziest? This alien object appeared thanks to arguably humanity's most epic mistake. Yes, you heard that right. Nature is, of course, a great artist, but in this case, clumsy humans helped. The history of this place is a real anecdote. Imagine 1916. An ordinary farmer buys a plot in this dead desert. He needs water to water his garden. He hires a crew, they drill a well, reach water, and then the first problem occurs. The water turns out to be almost boiling, about 93 degrees Celsius. It's useless for irrigation. The crops would just boil. The farmer spits in annoyance, the well is capped and forgotten. Almost half a century passes, 1964. An energy company thinks, oh, there's hot water there. Let's build a geothermal power plant. They drill again, and another failure. The water wasn't hot enough for turbines, but too hot for everything else. The technicians, apparently so frustrated, sealed the well with a good enough attitude. And that's when nature said, hold my beer. The pressure of the geothermal waters simply blew out the weak plug. Boiling water began to gush to the surface. But it wasn't just water, it was a cocktail of minerals. Calcite began to settle year after year, layer by layer, forming these strange rocks. Over half a century, they grew 15 meters and continue to grow even now. But where did these crazy colors come from? Why does it look like a child colored it with markers? It's all thanks to thermophilic algae. These guys don't care about the heat, they love boiling water. Green color is algae. Red and orange are iron oxides. The result is a living, pulsating palette. However, don't let this beauty fool you. Remember the video's theme? Beautiful, but deadly. Fly Geyser is not a jacuzzi. The water here erupts at temperatures close to boiling. If you get too close for a selfie and slip on the wet algae, and it's as slippery as ice, you'll fall straight into puddles with temperatures near 100 degrees Celsius, and burns are instantly guaranteed. In addition, the ground around the geyser is deceptive. It's a thin crust of minerals, beneath which a mud bog of boiling water can hide. One wrong step, crunch, and your foot falls into a natural pressure cooker. We're moving to Southeast Asia, to the Philippines, Bohol Island. The second place on our list is the Chocolate Hills. Look at this landscape. The first thing that comes to mind is that the textures in a video game glitched. Before you lies a valley dotted with perfectly even symmetrical cones. There are not 10, not 100, but over 1,200 of them. And they cover an area of 50 square kilometers. This looks so unnatural and orderly that the brain refuses to believe in the natural origin of this place. It seems like gigantic anthills, alien landing modules, or, as tourists often joke, a box of chocolate truffles forgotten by some giant sweet tooth. This is actually where the name Chocolate Hills comes from. No, they are not made of cocoa and don't even try to lick them. Most of the year, they are covered with green grass, but when the dry season comes, the sun mercilessly burns out the vegetation, and the grass turns dark brown. The entire landscape transforms into an endless field of giant chocolate candies. The height of these hills varies from 30 to 120 meters, and what's surprising is that no trees grow on them, only tough grass. This adds even more alien strangeness to the place. Around it are dense tropical jungles, palm trees, a riot of life, and here are bald brown mounds stretching to the horizon. How could nature create such geometric precision? Scientists debated this for decades. Now, the main theory is this. Long ago, millions of years ago, this was the ocean floor. The hills are ancient coral reefs that rose from the water as a result of tectonic plate shifts. And then millennia of rain and wind sculpted the limestone, giving it this conical shape. That is essentially, we are walking on the bottom of a prehistoric sea that decided to become mountains. Of course, the locals didn't like boring geology, so they have their own legends. The most popular one says that two giants quarreled and for several days threw huge stones and sand at each other. When they got tired and made up, no one bothered to clean up the mess. That's how the hills appeared. Another legend is more romantic and tragic. A mighty giant fell in love with a simple mortal girl. When she died, he cried so long and bitterly that his tears, falling to the ground, turned to stone and became these hills. Beautiful, right? But remember our motto, beautiful, but dangerous. The chocolate hills seem soft and plush only from afar. Up close, it's a harsh, difficult to navigate landscape. The slopes are very steep, and beneath a thin layer of parched grass lies sharp, porous limestone which can easily tear shoes and feet. Climbing them without special equipment is forbidden, and physically very difficult due to the heat and humidity. Moreover, in the tall grass between the hills, there are many snakes and insects that are not at all happy with tourists. Lençóis Maranhenses National Park, Brazil. This place looks like the most beautiful and massive glitch in the Matrix. When you look at these shots, your brain refuses to perceive reality. Before you stretches a valley dotted with snow white like powdered sugar, dunes that extend to the horizon, and between them in every hollow, perfect blue, green, and navy lagoons are spread out. This is not a mirage caused by heat stroke or Photoshop. This is a reality that exists in northeastern Brazil. The name Lençóis Maranhenses itself translates from Portuguese as sheets of Maranhão, and it's a very accurate description. From a bird's eye view, it seems as if some giant washed gigantic white sheets and scattered them to dry in the wind. The area of this wonder is 1,550 square kilometers. It's as if we took the area of London and completely covered it with white sand and then filled it with water. But how is this even possible? A desert where you can drown? The secret is that technically it's not a desert at all. An enormous amount of precipitation falls here, 300 times more than in the Sahara. And beneath the layer of sand is a dense layer of rock that acts like a plug in a bathtub. Water simply cannot go underground. It accumulates in the lowlands, forming thousands of freshwater lakes. And this is where the real magic begins, the kind that gives you goosebumps. Life teems in these lakes amidst the dead sands. You can dive into a dune and swim there with fish. Yes, you heard that right. Fish, crabs, and turtles live here. How do they get there? Some eggs are brought by birds on their feet, but there are also local zombie fish, the traras. When the water evaporates in the dry season and the lagoons dry up, these fish burrow deep into the wet mud for hibernation. They can lie there for months like mummies until it rains again. The water returns and the desert comes alive. Sounds like paradise on earth, right? You want to teleport there right now and dive into this warm azure water, but don't rush to relax. We're talking about places that can kill. And the beauty of Lençóis Maranhenses is a perfect trap. Firstly, this place is huge and monotonous. There are no landmarks here, no trees, no rocks, no road signs, only endless white sand blinding the eyes. If you wander a couple of 100 meters from your group or jeep, you risk getting lost forever. To a person, all the dunes look the same. You'll wander in circles under the scorching equatorial sun until you collapse from dehydration. There are no shadows here, nowhere to hide. Secondly, the sand here is treacherous. In some places, especially after rains, quicksand forms. A seemingly solid surface can instantly swallow your leg, and it will be extremely difficult to get out without help. Now imagine you're alone for miles around. There's no one. The air temperature is plus 40 degrees Celsius in the shade, which isn't there, and the water that seemed like salvation is unfit for drinking because you're already dehydrated, and it's days of travel to the nearest settlement. Local guides tell stories of tourists who, intoxicated by the beauty, decided to walk to that beautiful dune and disappeared. Finding a person on this dazzling white sheet is a harder task than finding a needle in a haystack. Lençóis Maranhenses teaches us the main rule of survival. Nature can look like a luxurious resort, but it is absolutely indifferent to your life. This place is a paradox: water and sand, life and death. But if here the water looks like a heavenly lagoon, in the next place on our list, the water looks like blood. Rio Tinto River, Spain. It looks so creepy and unnatural that the first thought of any normal person would be an ecological disaster has occurred here. And you'd be partly right, but the scale of this strangeness goes far beyond human comprehension. This place is called Mars on Earth, and this is not just a catchy headline to attract tourists, it's a scientific fact. If you dream of seeing the red planet but don't have a couple of $1 billion for an Elon Musk rocket, just buy a ticket to Seville. The landscapes here are so identical to Martian ones that NASA and European Space Agency specialists have been using Rio Tinto as a proving ground for years. They test their robot drills and spacesuits here. If a rover can survive here, it means it will survive on Mars because the conditions in this river are a chemical hell. Why is it so red? It's all about chemistry. The water in this river has extreme acidity. Its pH level ranges from 1.7 to 2. For comparison, this is the acidity of stomach acid or concentrated vinegar. But that's not all. This water is actually a saturated solution of heavy metals: iron, copper, zinc, arsenic. Almost the entire toxic part of the periodic table is collected here. It is the dissolved iron oxidizing that gives the water this deep blood red and orange hue. Where did this nastiness come from? People have been digging here for 5,000 years. Ancient Iberians, Romans, Moors, all of them extracted gold, silver, and copper here. This place is considered the cradle of the Bronze Age. Over millennia, mines crisscrossed the land, and groundwater mixing with the ore turn the river into an acidic stream. But the most shocking thing here is not the color or the history. The most amazing thing is life. It would seem that in such an acid full of arsenic, all living things should die. But Rio Tinto teems with life. Not the kind we're used to, though. Extremophiles live here, special bacteria that don't need oxygen or sunlight. They literally feed on rocks and iron. It is thanks to these bacteria that scientists hope to find life on other planets. If they survive in this poisonous river, then life is possible anywhere. Now for the main topic, dangers. Rio Tinto is not a place for a family vacation. Swimming here is strictly prohibited, and you wouldn't want to anyway. If you dip your hand in this water, it won't dissolve instantly like in cartoons, but severe chemical skin irritation is guaranteed. And if you have even the slightest scratch or wound, the pain will be hellish. But the main threat is not just the acid, but what is dissolved in it. A casual sip of this water could be the last of your life due to the extremely high concentration of poisons. Heavy metals accumulate in the body and destroy the kidneys and liver. Even just walking along the shore requires caution. Evaporation on a hot day can cause headaches and a burning sensation in the throat. The riverbanks are covered with a yellow crust of sulfur and strange crystals that look beautiful, but touching them with bare hands is a bad idea. Rio Tinto is a scar on the face of the earth, a bloody wound that has not healed for millennia. It is a reminder that our planet can be toxic, hostile, and utterly alien. The Tsingy de Bemaraha Stone Forest, Madagascar. The name sounds like a spell, and there's some truth to that. Translated from the local Malagasy language, the word Tsingji means a place where one cannot walk barefoot. And that's probably the mildest warning in human history. Because here, not only barefoot, but even in the most durable trekking shoes, every step can be your last. Look at these rocks. These aren't just mountains. This is an endless labyrinth of razor-sharp limestone. Millions of years ago, this territory was hidden underwater. Then the ocean receded, and tropical downpours went to work. Water, year after year, century after century, eroded the soft stone, washing it away and leaving only the hardest rocks. As a result, nature created the largest stone forest in the world. The area of this park is 1,520 square kilometers. It's a real palisade of stone peaks, teeth, and towers. From above, it looks fantastically beautiful. It seems like the back of a sleeping dragon or the scenery for a dark fairy tale. But once you go down, the fairy tale turns into a survival horror. Why is this place deadly dangerous? It's simple. The local stone is so sharp that it cuts human flesh, clothing, and equipment like butter. If you slip or stumble, you have no chance to simply fall and get a bruise. You will fall onto dozens of stone knives. Any fall here turns a person into mincemeat. It's a natural meat grinder in the most literal sense of the word. In addition, it's incredibly easy to get lost here. Below, at the foot of these needles, narrow canyons and caves form, where almost no sunlight penetrates. This is a real labyrinth of the Minotaur. Tourists move here only on specially laid suspended bridges and ladders, fastened with safety ropes. A step left or right, and you are in mortal danger. But what really blows your mind is that this place, which seems absolutely hostile to any form of life, is actually inhabited. Look up. Do you see these white, fluffy creatures? These are Siphica lemurs. While humans, dripping with sweat from fear and heat, crawl along the bridges, these guys jump from one sharp rock to another with ninja-like grace. They have thick, rubbery pads on their paws that protect them from cuts. For them, this deadly palisade is their home and an ideal defense against predators. No one but them can survive in this stone hell. It all looks surreal. Snow-white animals jumping on black blades against a blue sky. A truly alien ecosystem. Tsingy is a place of contrasts. Above, a scorching stone where the temperature reaches 40 to 50 degrees Celsius and dry air burns the lungs. And below, in deep crevices, humid tropical jungles, swamps, and shade where unique reptiles and insects live. This place reminds us man is an outsider here. We are too soft, too slow, and clumsy for this landscape. Tsingy is a monument to natural aggression. Beautiful, majestic, but ready to kill anyone who shows disrespect or carelessness. Darvaza Gas Crater, Turkmenistan. Gates of Hell. Welcome to the Gates of Hell. This is not a clickbait title, it's the official nickname for a place that looks like Satan forgot to close the front door behind him. A huge crater 69 meters in diameter and as deep as a 10-story building, and its entire bottom is covered with hundreds of natural gas torches that don't extinguish for a second. The spectacle is mesmerizing and frightening at the same time. The fire doesn't crackle like an uncomfortable campfire. It's a low, powerful hum, similar to the sound of a jet engine turbine in the distance. The heat from the crater can be felt hundreds of meters away. If the wind blows your way, it will feel like you've opened an oven heated to maximum. Only this oven is the size of a football field. But the most interesting thing about this place is its history. As with the Fly Geyser, this wonder of nature is the result of an epic human failure. The gates of hell were opened by Soviet geologists in 1971. They were looking for natural gas here, found it, began drilling an exploration well, but the engineers miscalculated. There was a huge void, a cavern, underground. At one fine moment, the Earth simply collapsed. The drilling rig, equipment, transport, everything plunged down into Tartarus. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but gas began to escape from the resulting hole. The geologists panicked. The gas could poison the residents of the nearby village of Darvaza. And then a decision was made that today seems like the plot of a bad comedy. They decided to set the crater on fire. The logic was simple. The gas would burn out in a couple of days, and we would put it all out. They struck a match, threw it down. More than 50 years have passed. A couple of days stretched out a bit. The crater is still burning. Billions of cubic meters of valuable natural resource are simply burning in the atmosphere, creating the most expensive and meaningless burner in the world. Why is this place on our list of deadly, dangerous places? Firstly, it's open fire and unstable ground. For a long time, there were no fences here, none at all. You could approach the very edge of the abyss. The soil here is loose, sandy. One clumsy movement, one crumbling piece of the edge, and you fall straight into the inferno, where the temperature reaches 1,000 degrees Celsius. Zero chance of survival. Secondly, the air. Yes, the gas burns, but the combustion products and the constant smell of sulfur make the atmosphere here extremely heavy. Spending a long time at the edge without a respirator means guaranteeing yourself a headache and poisoning. And this place attracts the most creepy desert creatures. You know who loves warmth? Spiders. Thousands of spiders, including Salifagae, crawl towards the light and heat of the crater at night. The sight of standing at the edge of hell with hairy creatures scurrying under your feet is definitely not for the faint of heart. The president of Turkmenistan has been ordering scientists for years to come up with a way to extinguish this crater. But so far, without success. The gates of hell do not want to close. This place is a perfect illustration of how fragile the boundary is between our world and the underground elements. By day, it just looks like a hole in the ground. By night, it's a true branch of the underworld. Spotted Lake, Kliluk, Canada. If you have trypophobia, the fear of clusters of holes, you're probably feeling uneasy right now. This lake looks like someone took a giant leopard skin and spread it on the ground, or as if you're looking through a microscope at a petri dish where unknown bacteria are multiplying. The entire surface of the water is covered with hundreds of round spots, green, yellow, white, sometimes even blue. White paths resembling scars run between these spots. This is Kliluk, or Spotted Lake, and it's probably the largest natural chemical plant in the open air. In winter and spring, it looks like an ordinary body of water, but as soon as summer arrives and the temperature rises, the water begins to evaporate. And then the magic happens. The lake reveals its bottom, consisting of hundreds of small pools. Why are they multicolored? It's pure chemistry. Kliluk is one of the most mineralized lakes in the world. Almost half of the periodic table is collected here. Magnesium sulfate, calcium, sodium sulfates, plus silver and titanium. Each spot is a separate puddle with a unique chemical composition. The color depends on which mineral predominates at the moment. Most circles are yellow or green due to magnesium sulfate, which crystallizes and forms a hard crust around the puddles. These crusts are so strong that you can walk on them like asphalt. For the local Okanagan First Nation, this place has been sacred for centuries. There is a legend that warring tribes would stop battles to bring their wounded here. They believed that the mud and water from these puddles healed any wounds. And there's sense in that. A high concentration of salts indeed works as a powerful antiseptic. But here's why this place made our list. Beautiful, but dangerous. Kliluk is not a spa resort. It's a concentrated chemical brine. If for external use in small doses, it can be a medicine. For any organism that tries to live here, it's death. There are no fish here, no algae grow here. It's a dead zone. The water here is so saturated with salts that it works like a sponge. If you decide to swim in one of these colorful puddles, you won't refresh yourself. On the contrary, the solution will begin to draw moisture from your body at a frantic rate. And what if you accidentally swallow this water? Well, let's just say your stomach and kidneys will get such a chemical shock from magnesium and sulfates that you'll need very fast ambulance service, which is unlikely to reach there. This is a natural laxative of such power that dehydration will set in within hours. Furthermore, tourists are forbidden to walk on these salt paths between the spots. And not just because it's sacred indigenous land, the mineral crust is deceptive. It looks solid, but at any moment it can break and you'll fall into viscous and caustic mud that can cause severe skin irritation or chemical burns. For a long time, the lake was owned by a private individual who wanted to create a resort there. He even planned to extract these minerals for the production of ammunition. Imagine making bullets from a lake. But the indigenous people bought this land for a huge sum of money to save it. Now the lake is fenced off. You can't enter. You can only look from the highway. And that's for the best, because some things on our planet are created to be admired from afar, not touched. Now take a deep breath. We're going underwater, Mexico, Yucatan Peninsula. This place is a mecca for divers from all over the world. But there's one spot here that makes your brain literally break. You put on your scuba gear, jump into the dark water of a cenote. It's a natural sinkhole. And you start descending 10 meters, 20 meters. The water is crystal clear. And suddenly, at a depth of 30 meters, you look down and see a river. Yes, you heard that right. Below you, beneath the water column, another river flows. It has banks, trees grow along it, fallen leaves lie, and a thick, milky white fog hovers above the surface of this river. At this moment, it feels like you've stepped into that SpongeBob cartoon where the characters made a campfire underwater. Physics is out of the chat here. You're hovering over a gloomy forest shrouded in fog, yet you're deep underwater. It looks like a scene from a mystical thriller or a Tim Burton movie. Angelita translates to little angel, but the landscape here is far from angelic. It's more like the river Styx, leading to the realm of the dead. Dead trees stick out of the fog, silence presses on your ears. What's actually happening here? This phenomenon is called a halocline. The cenote is a deep hole filled with water. Fresh rainwater enters it from above, and salty ocean water seeps in from below through cracks in the limestone. Fresh water is lighter than salt water, so they don't mix. But where did this eerie river and fog come from? The thing is, leaves, branches, and trees have been falling into the cenote for centuries. All this organic matter decomposes at depth. During decomposition, hydrogen sulfide is released, and this gas accumulates exactly at the boundary between the fresh and salt water, forming a dense cloud a couple of meters thick. What looks like a foggy river is a layer of poisonous gas, and this is where the beautiful but deadly part begins. First, it's a psychological trap. Many divers seeing this scene lose touch with reality. Nitrogen narcosis or deep sea sickness already starts to take effect at such depths. A person might think they can take off their mask and breathe this air. This is certain death. Second, hydrogen sulfide itself. It's a toxic substance. Of course, it won't poison you instantly through your wetsuit and skin, but the environment itself is extremely hostile. The scariest thing happens if you decide to dive into this fog. As soon as you descend into the hydrogen sulfide layer, the light completely disappears. You find yourself in complete darkness in a murky sludge that smells of rotten eggs. Yes, the smell is noticeable even through the regulator. A flashlight is useless here. The beam of light simply cannot penetrate this suspension. At this moment, the diver instantly loses spatial orientation. Where is up? Where is down? Where to swim? Panic sets in, and panic underwater is the main killer. A person starts breathing chaotically, using up all their air in minutes, or makes a sudden dash upwards, getting decompression sickness. Many experienced divers have admitted that diving into this fog was the most terrifying experience of their lives. The feeling of being buried alive. Cenote Angelita is a place of ghostly and gothic beauty. It beckons with its mystery, but it doesn't forgive mistakes. It's an underwater cemetery where time has stood still. Before you is Roraima, the most mysterious plateau on the planet. It's not just a mountain with a sharp peak that we're used to. It's a gigantic, absolutely flat table that rises almost 3 kilometers above the jungle. The walls of this mountain are sheer, vertical, as if they were chopped off with a giant axe. Clouds often hang below the summit, creating the complete illusion that this stone island is drifting in a celestial ocean. Local Pimon indigenous people call such mountains tepuis, meaning house of the gods, and they have a beautiful but eerie legend. They believe that Roraima is a giant stump left from a mighty tree of life on which all the fruits and vegetables of the world grew. Heroes cut down this tree, the trunk fell, and the stump became an eternal monument. But the real science here is even cooler than the legends. Roraima is a geological grandfather of our planet. These rocks are 2 billion years old. Think about that number, 2 billion. When these stones were forming, there weren't even dinosaurs on Earth, let alone complex life. And this is where it gets most interesting. This plateau has been isolated from the rest of the world for millions of years. While evolution was taking its course in the jungles below, species appeared and disappeared. Here, on top, time stood still. This is a real biological prison. Once on the summit, you find yourself on another planet. The landscape here is absolutely lunar. Black, lichen-covered rocks of bizarre shapes, crystal valleys strewn with quartz, and silence. But it's not a dead silence. Life is here, but it looks like a glitch in nature. Almost all animals and plants here are endemic, meaning they are found nowhere else in the universe. For example, the tiny black frog, the Guianan harlequin, lives here. Do you know its trick? It can't jump and it can't swim. If startled, it curls into a pebble and rolls down the slope. Now, about why this place is deadly dangerous. It seems that walking on a flat summit is safe. But no. First, Roraima is a climatic hell. The weather here changes not by the hour, but by the second. Just moments ago, the sun was shining and suddenly, an icy wind blows in. The temperature drops almost to zero, and you're covered in dense fog. Visibility becomes zero. People who walk a couple of meters from camp to go to the bathroom risk not finding their way back. Getting lost in this stone labyrinth is easy, and spending the night here without shelter is a sure path to hypothermia and death. Second, the surface of the plateau is not a football field. It's an endless network of cracks, crevices, and sinkholes hidden by moss. One wrong step and you fall into a deep stone trap. Third, nature itself is hungry here. The soil on the summit is poor. There are almost no minerals, so the plants here have become predators. The plateau is strewn with sundews and pitcher plants. These are beautiful but deadly flowers that feed on insects. They secrete sweet nectar, lure their prey, and then digest it alive in acid. It looks like a wicked queen's garden. And of course, don't forget the cliffs. The edges of Roraima have no railings. You approach the edge and there's an abyss of 400 meters of freefall. The wind here is gusty and unpredictable. Many brave souls who wanted to take a photo with their legs dangling were simply blown away. Welcome to Skeleton Coast. The name itself sends shivers down your spine, doesn't it? And it's not given to this place without reason. When Portuguese navigators first saw this coast in the 15th century, they called it the Gates of Hell. And the local Bushmen are even more precise. The land God created in anger. Visually, this place captivates with its grim, post-apocalyptic beauty. Imagine a thick, dense fog that hangs over the water almost all year round. Through it, huge waves crash with a roar, and on the shore, instead of sun loungers, lie the rusty hulks of hundreds of sunken ships. Tankers, fishing vessels, boats, all of them stick out of the sand like giant rotten teeth, slowly disintegrating under the wind and salt. But why are there so many shipwrecks here? Icy water from Antarctica meets the scorching desert air here. This creates thick fogs and strong, unpredictable currents. Ships, having lost their bearings in the fog, were simply thrown onto the shoals. Captains couldn't see the shore until the keel hit the sand. And this is where the real nightmare begins, which makes this place a deadly trap. Imagine yourself a 19th century sailor. Your ship is wrecked. A storm rages around, the water is icy, it's full of sharks. You miraculously survive, battle the waves, and finally crawl onto the shore. You think, I'm saved, land. You lift your head and realize that your death has only been delayed but has become inevitable and agonizing. Before you are hundreds of kilometers of lifeless sand dunes. There is no water, no food, no shade, and it's several weeks' walk across scorching sand to the nearest human settlement. Skeleton Coast is the only place on Earth where shipwrecked sailors prayed to drown, because death from thirst and sun in the desert is far worse. Rescue expeditions often found skeletons of people here, lying directly on the sand looking at the ocean. Next to them were found fragments of boats they tried to build to sail back. They understood that the ocean that destroyed them was the only way out, because the desert behind them was a wall. The coast got its name not only because of people. Originally, it was littered with the bones of whales and seals that were washed ashore. Now, rusty skeletons of machines have been added to them. But life exists here, and it looks utterly surreal, alien-like. Not crabs and seagulls roam the beaches here, but lions, hyenas, and elephants. Desert lions have adapted to life in this hell. They walk along the surf line and hunt seals. Just think about this image. A lion, king of beasts, tearing apart its prey against the backdrop of ocean waves. It looks like a bug in nature's code, as if animals were teleported to the wrong location. This place weighs on the psyche. The endless howl of the wind, the roar of the waves, and a feeling of total solitude. Here you understand how insignificant man is in the face of the elements. Skeleton Coast is a graveyard of hopes frozen in time. The rust here is beautiful, but it's the beauty of death and decay. We've closed the top 10 of our ranking. We've seen places that kill with heat, height, water, and loneliness. But now we move on to the final 3, to those very places I mentioned at the beginning. Here, nature goes on the offensive. Here, the environment itself is aggressive, toxic, and filled with monsters that shouldn't exist. Movil Cave, Romania. Forget about searching for life on Mars. If you want to see real aliens, you don't need a rocket, you need a shovel. In 1986, during the socialist era of Romania, workers were looking for a site to build a power plant. They drilled into the ground and accidentally stumbled upon a strange void. When scientists descended there, they realized they had opened Pandora's box. Before them was a cave that had been completely hermetically sealed off from the outside world for 5.5 million years. Think about that number, 5.5 million years. When this cave closed, humans didn't even exist yet. Mastodons roamed the earth. And all this time in complete darkness without a single ray of sun, its own absolutely insane evolution was taking place there. This place is called the Hellish Aquarium. And here's why it's at the top of our list of deadly dangerous places. First, the atmosphere. The air here is poison. If you take off your mask, you'll die in a couple of minutes. The oxygen level here is minuscule, only 7 to 10% instead of our 21%. But the carbon dioxide concentration is 100 times higher than normal. Plus, the air is saturated with hydrogen sulfide and methane. It smells, to put it mildly, not of roses, but of rotten eggs and decay. It's a natural gas chamber, but the most shocking thing is not the air. It's who breathes it. Scientists were convinced that life was impossible in such conditions. But when they turned on their flashlights, they saw that the walls, water, and floor were literally teeming with creatures. There are 48 species of animals living there, and 33 of them are endemic. That is, they exist nowhere else in the universe. These are unique genetic mutants. What do they look like? Like a nightmare. Since it's eternal darkness there, these creatures have no eyes. They simply don't need them. They have no pigmentation. Their skin is pale, translucent. Their insides are visible through it. They have grown huge antennae and long legs to navigate by touch. Imagine spiders spinning webs in absolute darkness, not knowing what light is. Water scorpions, predatory leeches, giant centipedes. The most terrifying predator here is a huge centipede, which is the local Tyrannosaurus. It is venomous and eats anything that moves. But what do they eat if there's no sun and no plants? This is the most important discovery. All life in Movil Cave is based not on photosynthesis like ours, but on chemosynthesis. The base of the food chain is bacteria that consume methane and sulfur. They form a slimy film on the water and walls similar to wet toilet paper. This slime is eaten by small beetles, and the beetles are eaten by spiders and scorpions. This is a closed ecosystem that does not depend on the sun. If tomorrow a nuclear war happens on Earth and all life on the surface dies, the inhabitants of Movile Cave will not even notice it. They have survived ice ages, meteorite impacts, the appearance of humans. They don't care about us. Descending there is a deadly risk. Literally only a few scientists in the world have permission to enter. The descent goes through a narrow, dirty shaft. Then you have to crawl through flooded tunnels where only a couple of centimeters of air hang over your head, and even that is poisoned. Any scratch there threatens a terrible infection because the local bacteria are unknown to us and the local inhabitants are not at all afraid of humans. For them, we are just a big, warm piece of meat that has invaded their home. Movil Cave proves a terrible thing. Life is not always green meadows and birds. Life can be ugly, slimy, blind, and poisonous. We have touched a biological nightmare, but it was a quiet, dark, and damp place. Now we break out onto the surface to see fire, but not ordinary fire. Guys, if you thought the previous cave was creepy, now we're going to a place that looks like the most beautiful and deadly trap on the planet. This is the island of Java, Indonesia. And here is a volcano that breaks all notions of what nature should look like. Usually what is lava like? Red, orange, yellow. We're used to this from childhood, but Aijin doesn't care about our habits. At night, this volcano erupts electrically blue flames. What's the secret? Technically, it's not lava, it's sulfur. Huge deposits of sulfur inside the volcano heat up, melt, and ignite upon contact with air. The temperature of this blue stream is about 600 degrees Celsius. The burning liquid flows down, creating this light show. But the blue fire is just a lure. The real hell is in the volcano's crater. During the day, when the blue fire is not visible, tourists are greeted with a view of an incredibly beautiful turquoise lake. It looks like an ideal lagoon for swimming. The water's calm, the color's saturated, and a light vapor rises from it. And this is the largest acidic lake in the world. The pH level at the shores is 0.5, and in the center, it drops below 0. What does this mean in practice? If you throw an aluminum sheet into this lake, it will dissolve and fizz like an aspirin tablet in a glass of water in literally 20 minutes. If a person falls in there, well, let's just say rescuers won't have anyone to pull out. Organic tissues in such an environment break down at an alarming rate. But even if you don't plan to swim, Aijin will try to kill you. The air. It's permeated with poisonous fumes here. The volcano constantly emits clouds of sulfur dioxide. This is a heavy, suffocating gas. When the wind changes and the cloud covers the viewing platform, people start coughing blood. Their eyes water, their lungs burn with fire. Being there without a professional respirator is Russian roulette. Tourists often lose consciousness from suffocation. However, the most real nightmare of this place is not chemistry, but society. Against the backdrop of this deadly beauty, a human tragedy unfolds. In the crater, right on the shores of the acidic lake, miners work. They extract the very sulfur that burns with blue flames. They call it devil's gold. These people descend into the mouth of the volcano every day into clouds of poisonous smoke. They have no spacesuits, not even normal gas masks. Most of them simply shove a wet rag in their mouths. This is their only protection. They break off pieces of solidified sulfur with crowbars, load them into baskets, and carry them up. The weight of the baskets is from 70 to 90 kilograms. And with this load, they climb up steep, slippery rocks from the crater. For one trip, they earn mere pennies, about $5 to $7. The average life expectancy of a miner in Aegean is 45 to 50 years. Their lungs are destroyed, their teeth dissolve from acidic vapors, their backs break under the weight of the load. The contrast is simply shocking. Tourists in expensive gear take selfies against the backdrop of beautiful smoke, and nearby, coughing and suffocating, local laborers pass by, literally selling their health for a piece of bread. Friends, here we are at the end. We've seen boiling geysers, underwater rivers, stone knives, and even caves with monsters. But all this time, we've been on Earth. And now we're leaving our cozy planet. Welcome to the most brutal, most hostile, and most alien place that exists on the world map. This is the cradle of humanity that dreams of killing humanity. Before you is the Danakil Depression in Ethiopia, and specifically the Dalal volcano. Poisonous yellow, acid green, orange, and brown colors, salt mushrooms, strange growths, bubbling puddles. It looks like the surface of Io, Jupiter's moon, or like a set for a movie about a toxic apocalypse. It seems like a giant chemical factory exploded here, but this is an absolutely natural formation, and it is officially the hottest place on Earth. No, not Death Valley in the USA, and not the desert in Libya. There are peak temperature spikes there, but here, heat is a constant. The average annual temperature here is plus 34 degrees Celsius. That's the average. During the day, the air heats up to plus 63 degrees Celsius in the shade. Only there is no shade here. The ground underfoot is so hot that the soles of shoes melt. Why is this place so insane? Here, in the Afar Depression, 3 tectonic plates collide at once. They are tearing the Earth's crust apart, and magma approaches the surface incredibly closely. Essentially, we are standing on a thin crust under which an ocean of lava rages. The depression is 100 meters below sea level, and all the water that enters it instantly boils away, leaving behind thick layers of salt. But heat is not the worst thing. This place tries to kill you with chemistry. Those beautiful yellow-green puddles you see are concentrated acid. The pH here is close to 0. It's not even vinegar, it's battery acid. If you stumble and fall into such a beautiful puddle, the chemical burn will eat away flesh to the bone in a matter of minutes. Now, inhale. Although no, better not. The air here is permeated with vapors of chlorine, sulfur, and ammonia. It's a toxic cocktail that burns the mucous membranes of the eyes and lungs. Tourists who dare to come here walk with wet cloths over their faces. But even that doesn't save them from a burning sensation in their throats and a metallic taste in their mouths. Birds that mistakenly fly over the Dalal volcano often fall dead, having inhaled the poisonous fumes. You can see their mummified carcasses lying near the acidic lakes. It was here that scientists made a shocking discovery that put an end to the search for simple life on Mars. They were looking for anyone here, bacteria, microbes, archaea, anyone. Usually life finds a way everywhere. We saw this in Mobile Cave in the Rio Tinto River. But Dalal is an exception. There is no life in these acidic, hot, salty puddles. The conditions here are so extreme that even the cell membranes of the most resistant bacteria are destroyed. This is officially the most lifeless place on planet Earth. Complete sterile death. However, the most mind-blowing thing about this hell is the people. Despite the deadly heat and poisonous air, people of the Afar tribe come here. They call this place their home. These incredibly resilient people mine salt by hand here. Under the scorching sun in the plus, they cut out salt slabs with crowbars, load them onto camels, and leave in caravans into the endless desert. For us, this place is a tourist attraction of death, but for them, it's white gold and the only way to survive. Looking at them, you realize that humans are the most resilient creatures on the planet. As you can see, our planet can be not only a kind mother, but also a cruel monster. What place scared you the most? The underwater river or the cave with monsters? Write in the comments. Like this video if you're glad you're watching it at home on your couch and not actually there. Subscribe to the channel. Lots more interesting stuff ahead.